Hey guys, how you doing? Rahul here, and recently a few people have been asking how do I make my thumbnails and stuff, so I thought I'll make this video right here just to show you what I do and how I make them, how they look. So anyway, the program I use is Photoshop, and the canvas size is a 720p, so I use a 1280 by 720p canvas size, and this is what we get. I put a little ruler in the middle as well just to help with alignment and stuff, but this is something you don't really need to do. Then I go in game and get a screenshot of something which would be useful to use for the thumbnail. So I'm here, I've got one, and let's just drag it in, and as you can see, it's my Hyper Beast. I believe that skin is called for my M4, and we've just got it. I think this was on the AWP India map or AWP Lego. I can't remember the exact name. Actually, no, it's not AWP India. It is AWP Lego, I think. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but one of those maps, and I was just like showing off like that by pressing F, so inspecting the weapon and getting it to look like that. Then what I normally do is just resize it and make it a little bit bigger, because this image right here we've got is a 1080p image, and we've put it on a 720p canvas. So if we make it a bit bigger, the quality won't be like getting stretched out, because it still isn't the exact size of what the actual image is, if that makes any sense. So normally I'll try and get it to be in the middle, as you can see. So we've got this weapon skin right in the middle. Give it the image a little bit of a tilt as well, just to add that extra effect. And also when I do this, I try and leave some room at the top and stuff to have my text. So this is something all the stuff you have to be thinking about. Then what I want to do is just accept where that is, and then right click the layer and rasterize it. Now what I like to do is cut out the weapon or anything which is like important off the image, so then I've got a new layer. And to do this, I use this tool right here, which is the lasso tool, and basically I just go around and start clicking and basically cut out the weapon. So now I'm going to do that, and I'm going to speed this all up. Once we've done that, we have our weapon here, and it looks all swaggy and stuff, looks pretty cool. And if you missed how you create it into a new layer, basically once you have your mask done, you can just right click and do new layer as copy, and then we get this new layer above it, so we can turn on and off the background, but also the weapon is still there in the original image. Now what I like to do is to this basically image of the weapon itself, or whatever you've cut out, I like to go into the blending options, and I like to do two things to it. The first thing I like to do is add a stroke to it, and this gives it kind of like an outline sort of thing. I like to make it white, or you could actually do it any sort of color. You could give it a gradient or something, but white I think works well. But yeah, if you wanted to, you could give it like a gradient and just mess about like that, see what works the best. But for me, I just like going with white. Maybe giving it like a thick kind of one looks good, or maybe a thinner one, but you can just mess around with the size of it and see what works best for you. So that looks pretty cool. Now for this weapon, I'm not going to do it, though I'll show you how to do it. But for some weapons which probably don't have the best design or much of a design, what you can do is click the gradient overlay, and then here you can choose the rainbow one like this, and then click OK. And then for your blend mode, you can go down and put soft light, and then it'll kind of give it like a rainbow sort of feel. However, like I said, with this skin, it doesn't really work that well, and the skin itself already looks pretty awesome, so I don't think we really need to have this gradient overlay. But if it was more of a dull kind of skin, or just no skin at all, then having that gradient overlay always works. Now we can do a few more things to the layer. So we've got the layer selected right here. We can go on to the vibrance. So here we have our adjustments. We can change the vibrance of it, and maybe just up the vibrance a little like that to give it kind of more of a feel on the colors and stuff, look quite cool. And you could also add some color curves and stuff, but I think we'll leave it as that. And now we'll go on to the background right here. So for the background, the first thing I like to do is click filter, then go onto blur gallery, then go onto field blur. Now here you can go to the blur section and drop this down, and normally I do it at like 4 or something, but it just kind of blurs the background, and it gives more like emphasis, and it draws your attention more to the weapon, and your background's kind of blurred, so that looks quite cool. Then to add to this, I like to add some vibrance, but this time I drop down the saturation and the vibrance a little bit, just so the colors are still there, so it's not completely black and white, but they're kind of washed out a little, so again, more focus is on the weapon. And maybe this time actually I've got too much vibrance on my M4 right here, so, or saturation on my M4 right here, so maybe we'll just drop it down a little bit. Maybe 7's enough. So that's it for the thumbnail. We have our weapon and stuff done. Now we can go into the text within the thumbnail, which is something which I like to do as well. and it's quite easy to do in itself. Just hop it over to the text tool right here and then create a text box whereabouts you kind of want your text. So I'm gonna probably do it around here. Then I'm gonna say, let's call on here, we'll have like thumbnail tutorial. So we're just gonna write thumbnail to start off with, and as you can see, it's quite big, so we can just do Control A and then drop down the size. The font I'm using here is called Plump Black, but you can use any kind of font you want. I feel that these big, thicker fonts work better within thumbnails rather than thin ones, as thin ones sometimes aren't that easily seen. And then once you've got your text the kind of right size, you can just move it about a little bit. So I normally like to rotate it a little bit as well, so just have it like that, and maybe have some of it off screen but still enough on the screen that you can read it. So something like that looks quite cool. And then I'll have the word tutorial maybe there, and we can actually have it behind our weapon, so the words and stuff are actually behind the weapon. So let's do that now. If we do Control J on this layer, once we've set it, if we do Control J, it'll create a copy, and then we can just change the text by highlighting the text and typing in tutorial. So now that we've done that, we can move it about, and normally I don't like having the same angle of rotation on both my text layers, so maybe I'll just rotate it a little bit, or maybe we'll give it like a rotate that way, or we'll have it like in the same direction as rotation, but maybe less of an angle. Or actually no, that's like the different rotation, but we've got it in a different kind of way, so we can have it there and move it into that area. And then we can maybe even up the size of the text a little bit and move it this way and have it there. And then what we can do is move these layers of our weapon above the text layer, so we've got it like that. Now we can go into the actual editing of the text, which is something which is quite cool. So we'll start off with the thumbnail word. We can just right click this and go into blending options, and then the effects I like to use on my text layers are normally the bevel and emboss, the stroke, the gradient overlay, and sometimes I like to use a drop shadow, but not all the time, just sometimes. I feel that it does work quite well, but we'll add that in the end to just see how everything goes. So for our stroke, again, we want to have it on the outside, and maybe we'll have it this big, so it looks right like that. And then we'll drop the color to white, or again, you can have it any color you want. For the gradient overlay, you normally can pick colors which work well with you. For me, I'm quite liking the purples and the oranges right now, so we're going to go for purple for the top text, orange for the bottom one, where we can just go like a purple to a kind of pinkish like that, and that looks quite cool. And then maybe we'll give it a little bit of a rotation, because we want it to go from the bottom of the text to the top. So how about that? Yeah, that looks good. Looks pretty swaggy right now. And drop shadow, I think we'll leave it out for this one. So we can click OK on that, and then we can go to tutorial. And actually what's quite cool about Photoshop is you can just right click the layer you've already edited, do copy layer style, then go onto your other layer, do paste layer style, and there we go, we've got it already. And all we have to do right now is change the gradient. So I'm going to drop it to an orangish kind of one. So I'm going to go from like a deep kind of orange reddish sort of color to a lighter orange, almost sort of like yellow color, and that looks quite cool. And maybe in fact we can up the stroke a little bit, not too much but enough. That is good enough. So yeah, there we go, we've got the stroke up a little bit, and there we go, that is our thumbnail done. Obviously now I can think about changing something. So maybe this weapon and the background I feel are a bit too much in like the way or something, so maybe I can move it down a little bit. And now I can think about changing where the text layers are. So if I drop this one a bit here, then that looks good, and just make some slight alterations, and maybe something here I could fill up. I don't think I have to. I think it looks good as it is. I could maybe move this layer a bit to the side. Actually no, I think it's already right on the edge right there. So I think that is about it, and that is how I make my thumbnail. So it's a pretty simple process, maybe some lengthy time when you're trying to cut out your weapon. Some weapons are harder than the others. For example, the Galil is a really hard weapon to cut out, because there's so many little parts and stuff you have to cut out of each individual holes and stuff within the weapon, and it's all angled and stuff, so it's kind of hard, but it takes time. And I find it kind of enjoyable to just kick back, listen to some music, and do it whilst your video is rendering, and you can make some pretty cool looking thumbnails. Anyway guys, I've been Rahul. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Obviously these thumbnails aren't the best in the world, and you can always make better ones. So if you have any tips on how do you make your own thumbnails, then drop them in the comments below. And yeah, catch you on the next one.